The ongoing dispute between two Soweto taxi associations continues after Gauteng Transport MEC Jacob Mamabolo cancelled today's media briefing. This follows an urgent intervention by the provincial government in clashes that saw several taxis being torched. Let's get you some analysis on the situation. We're joined now by from East London by the University of Fort Hare's Dr. Siyabulela Fobisi, who has done extensive research on the taxi industry. Doc, it's great to have you this morning on the program. It's an issue that raises its head every few years, or actually, once or twice every year, in fact. What's behind us still not being able to come to some kind of resolution where we actually see these so-called rival taxi organizations coming to the table and discussing things together?
Good morning, Michelle, and good morning to the viewers. Thank you for having me. The big problem really is, when the leaders in the industry, are not showing willingness to engage, with the state, with the government leaders, so that they can reach an agreement on what must be done. So I think it really is a deep issue of, different interests between the leaders, and also there's been delays from the government to actually intervene, in the industry. So I think really the deep issue has been, the differences between the industry, so to settle their own differences.
Yeah, I mean, commuters are always paying the price. We're seeing situations where people's jobs are actually put at risk because employers don't accept the excuse that there were no taxis available for me to get to work this morning. It's such a big issue. It has knock-on effects throughout the communities that these taxi organizations serve. It's in our interest to find solutions and to find them quickly.
Yes, that's correct, Michelle. That's correct. Because, I mean, this taxi violence issue is really affecting the commuters. Because, as you know, I mean, commuters have a right to access public transport. So this really affects them, their access to that public transport so that they can go to their places of work, to their places of study, to access healthcare. So it really is a problem, when there continues to be this case of tax violence, over routes, a violence that mostly erupts because of, differences and conflicts, over routes, what they call lucrative routes, So I think it is a big problem, really. It is a big problem because, I mean, the industry leaders must understand that, for the industry to operate, even it depends, on the commuters, for it to generate revenue. So if it then it resorts to tax violence, then that means it won't be able to generate that revenue. And also the rights of the people to access, public transport would be, tampered with.
So the taxi associations themselves, and sometimes commuters as well, will lay the blame for this kind of impasse at the foot of government. Is that a fair assessment of the situation, that government is not doing enough to get to the root of the issue and to resolve it?
Michelle, you will understand that, this has been the case, over the years. It's what I refer to as a lack of strategic intervention. So there's been that, over the years, especially since the 1990s, when the National Taxi Alliance, recommended that, the industry be formalized, be regulated, and a professional, skilling be introduced in the industry. So that was in 1996. So even those recommendations have not been implemented to date, it still remains a case that you see, an extent of a lack of political will, that has been displayed by the state over the years.
Yeah.
So there's been a lack of strategic intervention, by the state, and of course, the state, even when it intervenes, there has been cases where the industry, there's pushback from the industry, so say, look, the formalization, or no formalization, the point is, the state must leave our business alone. That's what some leaders said. So because they regarded that process as top down, they regarded as top down and as not opening a platform where the state engages with them.
Yeah.
So hence I've recommended over the years that there needs to be a form of engagement, with the leaders to look at the issues that are happening, and also even the leaders themselves must be able to table their issues, so that they can agree, on what must be done. Because really, it can't be the fact that the state is inviting the leaders, but then the leaders have differences to actually
Sure.
come up with solutions.
Sure. Dr. Fobisi, is it a reasonable assertion from those who operate on these routes that particular associations own particular routes? Because that does seem to be the crux of the problem, that there are those sort of illegal operators who are coming onto a route that perhaps is owned by a particular taxi association. But is that a reasonable assertion, that an association can own a route?
Michelle, no, it's not. There's that, element, in the industry. There's that element, of some leaders, or perhaps some operators, claiming to own routes and to have privilege, over routes, I don't think, that, helps, because, it really creates problems, especially in the context of illegal operators. So that context, I think, must be addressed, by the government leaders, and must be addressed, and to make sure that those that are not authorized to operate on that particular route are
Dr. Fobisi,
removed.
Can I come in there? Because there is sort of a reasonable argument being made there by these taxi associations, because if there are so many taxis operating on a particular route, obviously that means that no one is ever really able to make money out of that route. So that it's fair insofar as it doesn't make sense economically for so many taxi associations or illegal taxis, so-called, to be operating on one route.
Michelle, I think the real problem is when you have when that situation creates some violent competition. That becomes a problem when there's stiff competition, between those taxi operators. So I think then that it must be addressed, the fact that you have illegal operators, because we know for a fact that there are operators that are still driving taxis without operating licenses. That still must be addressed, because an operator must have an operating license to operate on a particular route. So I think the issue of violent competition must be addressed, so that taxis can have a fair competition that is efficient, and that contributes very, very well to the economy of the country.
One of the issues certainly must be the issue around formalizing and regulating the industry. That's something that not everyone can agree on.
Yes, Michelle, yes. As I just said to you now, over the years, there's been the issue from the taxi industry saying that, the formalization, comes down as a top-down process. Some leaders that I've engaged with, they said, look, government is somehow bringing this process as top-down without engaging with the industry. And I've actually recommended, even to the department itself, that there needs to be a point where government, invites the industry, sits down to discuss some of the issues that are happening. And of course, I welcome, the National Taxi Lekgotla that was held last year. But unfortunately, the other mother body, the National Taxi Alliance, did not participate in that. So that in itself must also be addressed, because you have a case where there are different leaders. There are leadership problems in the industry. You have Santaco and NTA that are trying to represent the industry. So the leadership problems must also be addressed.
And of course, that dispute between two Soweto taxi associations continuing after the Gauteng Transport MEC, Jacob Mamabolo, cancelled what was meant to be today's media briefing. Dr. Siyabulela Fobisi, let me thank you for your time this morning. He's a senior researcher at the University of Fort Hare.